Hey guys, so we have the Okai EA10 electric scooter, and in this video we want to explain to you how to replace the fuse inside of this scooter in case your fuse has blown out and you need to replace it. So the first thing, of course, is we're going to use our key to remove the cover here, or the footrest, and right underneath we're going to find, for one, the battery, and then also here this little metal cover, and the fuse is located underneath the cover. So the first thing we have to do is remove the battery, and we're going to remove that plug here from the front, and then we can use this lever in order to pull out the battery by lifting up the battery in the front and then carefully pulling it out of the back side. Really handle this battery carefully, like don't throw it around, like really handle it like a carton of eggs. So the next step is here to remove this metal plate here, or this little bracket, and that's held in place by four screws, four hex screws. So those are located on the outside. You find those two in the front here, right next to those two cables, to those two wires. And then there's two more towards the back side. Well, not those two, but those two here at the very end. So we're going to use like a 4mm hex socket or hex wrench, and we're going to remove this here. Takes a while, it's a little bit awkward to get to, but eventually we're going to get those loose, and once we have them all removed, then we can pull up this bracket here on the front, and then we can also eventually lift it up at the back side, or the right side here. So, and right underneath there we find here this little yellow and red thing. That's this little sound maker, this noise maker. When you enable or turn on the scooter, that's what you hear that makes the noise. Underneath we have here in gray the controller, and then this little black box here, that's where the fuse is inside of, and we can pull off that black cover. Just pull it up, and then right underneath in green we find the fuse, and this fuse is a 30 amp fuse. We can really simply pull this out. See here in green, that automatically means this is a 30 amp fuse. It's a regular old-fashioned automotive fuse. So you're going to find these online. I'm going to leave a link below, and so you find them online, but also you find them, of course, in any auto parts store. So you want to check out the fuse if it's still intact, or if that little bridge here in between those blades is broken. So in this case, that bridge is still intact, so we can still use it. And when we want to install it, we have to put those two blades from the fuse right into those slots that we see here. So right in the center. Make sure to push it all the way down, so that it's nice and even and flat. So you want to make sure that it sits right. Also make sure that it's clean inside there, in case there's any dirt in there. Better to clean it up. It can only cause problems if it's wet or if it's dirty. And then make sure to put that cover back on. Don't forget to close this off so that it's watertight again. Okay, so then it is already the time to put everything back together. First, we're going to make sure here on this metal bracket that the those rubber lips are still on there, so that those didn't fall off, because those are important for those wires that go through there, that the wires don't get damaged over time. And you see here the shape of that bracket. This fits in only one direction. Make sure when you put it in that there's no wires getting pinched in, and also make sure that those two cables here that are on the right side, that those go into that small slot. And then also here, of course, the plug that goes into the battery, that this goes through that big slot here on the left side. And then once you put the bracket in position, again, make sure there's no wires being pinched. So we take a look into this gap here, that there's no wires in between. Just like this. And then also it's good to double check that really those two wires that are on the right side are really going into that slot. So you want to make sure that those are right in there, so that the wires don't get damaged over time. And here, when you go on the left side, make sure that nothing gets pinched on the bottom. because there's a lot of wires going through there. So I'm just going to squeeze them in. And then it's already time to put those those 4 screws back in place. I hope you didn't lose those. But first I'm going to still make sure that all the wires are here and nothing gets pinched. So this looks all good. Double check that here those wires are really where those rubber grommet is. Okay, yeah, and now we go to putting the screws back in place. You still should have 4 of those screws. Make sure that they're really tight, so once we start riding our scooter again, that they don't become loose. And then the next step is to reinstall the battery again. So we're going to slide this first into the back side, and then we're pushing it down at the front. We can use that lever that we have here to help with that. It's a little bit tricky to get it in all the way and make sure that the battery is really sitting in there nice and flat, that it doesn't like stick up at one of these sides. So it should be really nice and even. Push the lever to the front, and then we can plug the or put the connector back in. Okay, and once we've done that, then the last step is of course here to put that cover back on, first on the rear end where those 2 noses are on that board. Put those in first, then we use the key again to lock this cover in place. And then we're already done. And now we can see and check if our scooter works again. So I'm using our key here. And you see it turns back on and we can start it and ride again. Okay, so I hope you find this video helpful. If you have any more questions or comments, then please leave a message below. And if you liked it, then please give me a thumbs up.